My school's library is open until around 2 in the morning for the idiots like me who don't do their essays until the last minute. It's a pretty small building, and most of the books are in the basement area called the stacks. Just to give you a quick layout, there's the big main stairs that go down to the stacks, a vending machine room, and the long hallway with 4 entrances into the stacks. The stacks are 2 really big rooms on opposite sides of the hallway with a huge amount of bookshelves and study desks lining the walls. I was there around 11 p.m. last year. It was a pretty research-intensive essay, so I was down in the stacks working in one of the study desks, so I didn't have to keep going upstairs and downstairs again. I had been there for maybe 2 hours, and everyone except for a boy working a few desks down from me had left already. I was pretty zoned out by this point. It was an 8 a.m. class, so I didn't have much time until it was due, and I was sort of panicking. So it really pissed me off when I heard someone flipping through book pages really fast to make them do that loud noise at the other end of the room. I sort of ignored it for a while thinking they'd go away eventually, but they just kept doing it. After about 5 minutes, I got sick of it and started to walk over to tell them to knock it off. I get about 3 steps across the room, and it just stopped. I sat back down, and it was quiet again for like 10 more minutes before the flipping pages noise started again, only loads louder, like they'd grabbed a huge book that time. The boy started to get pissed off too, and he stood up and started walking through the bookshelves trying to find them. It keeps going, so I got up too and started looking around with him. It got really loud, and it was pretty obvious where it was coming from by that point, so we started walking towards it. He was on one side of the shelves, and I was on the other. We walked all the way down the shelves. No one there. We hadn't seen anyone come in the stacks, and we were on the side of the room with the entrances. No way could anyone have come in without us seeing them. The noise stopped again, and we both just sort of slowly walked back to our seats. I assumed it was just a fan or something in the other room, and I really needed to get my essay done. We sat down and immediately the noise started again. It sounded like it was coming from right next to the guy's chair. He shoved his stuff in his bag, looked at me, said, "FCK this," and took off. I was out of there maybe 5 seconds behind him. I still won't go back in the stacks at night, even when there's other people down there. No essay's worth getting murdered by a weird book ghost. I had a randomly assigned roommate in college who was a very sweet, religious girl. She kept to herself mostly, but she was always really kind and polite. This was the first year I didn't seem to have a BTCHY roommate, so I was excited to get along with her. About 2 nights after we get moved in, I wake up to hear someone sobbing softly outside my bedroom door. It was a really weird sound, this kind of desperate, creaky sobbing, and I was so fucking scared at first because it sounded like the SHT you hear in horror movies, or like The Witch, if you've played Left 4 Dead. I heard someone moving around the apartment and occasionally coming back to my door, scratching on it softly, so I finally summoned the courage to peek out of my bedroom. My roommate was just walking around the apartment, crying. She was sleepwalking apparently, because her eyes were closed, but when I opened the door her head turned to look right at me. Then, she slowly went to the kitchen table, picked up a pencil, and started to scrawl this weird symbol on her door. It looked like a circle with a triangle in it. I asked her if she was okay, and she just stood there, swaying and crying, and I was basically just like nope and locked the door. The next morning, she was really scared and mad at me because this demon symbol had appeared on her door, and she thought I had done it to prank her. She didn't believe me when I told her she was the one who did it, but accepted my denials that I did it, and we dropped it. Several times throughout the year, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to her in the kitchen, talking to herself. Every time, she would come to scratch softly on my door, and every morning, there would be another symbol on her door. She was still convinced it was me f***ing with her. I considered filming her, but honestly I was really scared of opening the door because I watched too many scary movies about demons and SHT. Then one time, we were in our separate dorm rooms when there was a huge bang from her bathroom. There was obviously no one else in the dorm, so we were both really freaked out, but we decided to investigate. We looked everywhere and nothing had fallen down, and there were no windows or other doors to the bathroom other than the one leading to our living room. We pulled back the shower curtain, and there was a huge arc of blood on the wall. She went pale but had no explanation for this. Later that night, while I was studying in total silence, she rushed into my room and demanded to know what I had said. I asked her what she was talking about, and she said she was in the bathroom and heard me talking to her like I was whispering something through the wall. Nope. After that, whenever she was gone for the weekend, I always heard weird noises coming from her side of the dorm suite in the middle of the night. Nope, nope, nope. She moved out at the end of the year, and that was that, but I've always wondered what the FCK that was all about. I'm going to preface this by saying I went to boarding school for 6 years. This boarding school was in the middle of a one-stoplight town and on a hill 800 feet up. The school used to be an old monastery. It was hundreds of years old and huge with 4 stories, including a basement where there was a boiler room and long hallways. Not all of these stories happened to myself, but the people who told me them were reliable enough to believe. Also, the school didn't want us telling stories to other people because they were afraid that it would make them not want to go to the school due to it being haunted. The first one happened to me. I used to be in charge of cleaning the gymnasium at night. Every student had a job that they had to do either at night or in the morning to help take care of the school. It taught you some practical things and all. Anyway, I was there by myself that night getting ready to start sweeping the gym. The gym had 2 floors to it. The upstairs part was the weightlifting area, and you could see it fully from the bottom part of the gym where the basketball court was. As I stepped into the gym, one of the basketballs starts rolling a bit. I look around to see if any doors are open and none are. I chalk it up to randomness, but see that it is continuing to roll. As I watch it, it makes a full circle around the entire gym and stops right next to my feet. At this point, I'm a bit scared, but figured it was nothing. I heard a creaking coming from the second floor and look up. There's a girl there, just staring right at me. As soon as I made direct eye contact with her, she bolts to the stairs that would take her to me. She let out a scream that I cannot describe. I was terrified and froze in place. Thankfully, she didn't come to me, but took a left and bolted through the main doors of the gym. They didn't open, she just went right through them. I noped the hell out of there. Job I had around the school was preparing the salad bar we had for lunch and dinner. To do this, I would have to get out everything we would need for the day from the basement in the giant freezer we had down there. I would then have to wash it and peel everything. I was one of the first people up every morning to do this job. I would get up at about 6 a.m. to do this every day. I got up at about 6. As soon as I woke up, I was feeling uneasy. I quickly took my shower and got dressed so I could get to the lunchroom at about 6:30. The person in charge of the kitchen was already up and getting everything warmed up. I said hello and checked out what we would need. I made a list and headed down. Now that feeling of uneasiness was there the whole time through my whole shower, walking the dark hallways in the morning, and even when I got to the kitchen. I opened the freezer and felt the cold blast of air. Needless to say, I could have cut diamonds with how cold it was. I stepped inside and started getting vegetables. As I was reaching for one, I heard a giggle. This wasn't a normal one, but like a small child's giggle. I instantly froze and whipped around. No one. I brushed it off and continued. Another giggle. I was like, no f***ing way. This is not happening to me. Flicked lights go off in the freezer. I still had a bit of light because I left the door open. I start seeing the door close, and it locks from the outside. I bolt for the door because I knew I would be locked in there for at least 15 minutes with the lights off if I didn't. I caught it right before it closed. Again, I hear the giggle. This time, it was right behind me. I screamed. I was 17 and screamed like a girl. I ran upstairs, told the guy I wasn't feeling well, and went and hid in my room until everyone else got up that morning. This past year in college, we had a ghost named Gideon living in our dorm who has followed my roommate from place to place, or so he claims. He would hear his name, have his bed being shaken in the middle of the night, stuff like that. He wasn't the only one to experience it. As the school year went on, Gideon began to get comfortable with all of us, and activity began to become frequent. When alone, I've heard faucets running, so I looked about and found nobody to be in the dorm apartment. I've heard knocking on my door, and when I opened it, nobody would be there. I'd hear knocking on my door, quick little raps of about 3 to 5 knocks every time I'm alone in the dorm apartment with my bedroom door closed. Every once in a while, late in the night, I'll hear a loud slap on my door or on my wall. I have a metal water bottle I keep on my windowsill, and one night it sounded as though someone was just picking it up and setting it down softly, just enough so there would be a metallic clinking on the sill. I heard a noise as though something had fallen off of my desk. When I woke up, my chapstick was on the floor beside my bed, which had originally been standing up in the middle of my desk. I heard it drop to the floor the night before, but my windows were closed and my fan was off, so I don't know how it could have gotten there. Something handed my pillow to me. I woke up sometime in the night to find it wasn't on the bed, reached out groggily, and it was suddenly in my hand. Something had tried unlocking my roommate's door from the outside. I had a guest spending the night, and they saw some strange shadow moving on my ceiling. We tried to recreate the shadow, but couldn't. The shades were down, so there wasn't too much light coming in. My roommate was alone and saw somebody out of the corner of his eye walk past his room. It doesn't sound weird, but the figure was walking toward the wall that's just windows, and there's nothing there other than a couch. When he left his room to see who it was, there was nobody there, and nobody could have gone anywhere being that we were on the 5th floor. One afternoon, my other roommate, the one who brought Gideon with him, of course, saw a shadow figure walk into one of the bathrooms. One night, I experienced a loud knock on my door. I said, yeah, got up and opened my door. There was, of course, nobody there, and at the same time as I opened my door, my roommate across from me opened his door claiming somebody knocked on his door. He thought it was me, I thought it was him. We had our doors knocked on at the exact same time. I never felt Gideon was a bad presence, just kind of there and doing his thing. There was never anything bad that happened to any of us having him there, other than an eerie feeling being alone in the place, as though you weren't entirely alone.